Your child is screaming. They are crying. Everything feels urgent. And in that moment, many parents do the same thing. They explain, correct, and try to reason. The surprising part is that this well-meant reaction can make the tantrum longer, not shorter. So what do you do during a child's tantrum instead? Tantrums are not rare accidents. They are a normal part of development, especially when children are tired, frustrated, hungry, or overstimulated. That matters because the way adults respond can shape both the child's recovery and the parent's stress. Once the pattern is understood, the moment becomes less mysterious and a lot more manageable. The central mistake is jumping into reasoning while the child is still emotionally flooded. Adults start explaining the rule, defending the boundary, or delivering a lesson. But logic needs a brain that is available for logic. When the nervous system is overwhelmed, the message may be accurate and still arrive at the wrong time. Parents usually do this for good reasons. They want to help, they want the noise to stop, and they may feel pressure from other people watching. Sometimes they are worried the child will never learn unless they correct it immediately. The intention is care. The problem is timing, and urgency can quietly override empathy. A tantrum is not the same as adult-style defiance. It is usually a sign that the child is overwhelmed, not a small person plotting a strategy. Their self-regulation system is still under construction, so strong emotion can take over before they can think clearly. That does not erase boundaries, it explains the storm. To see why, imagine two systems working together in the brain. One detects threat and pushes the body into alarm. The other helps with planning, flexibility, and self-control. During a tantrum, the first system becomes louder, and the second is harder to access. The child is not refusing to listen because they are rude. They are struggling because the brain is not fully ready for reasoning. The emotional alarm system, often linked to the amygdala, narrows attention. Everything becomes about the immediate discomfort, the toy, the cup, the transition, the lost turn. The body gets more reactive, not less. That is why even a small disappointment can suddenly feel enormous to the child. The moment is experienced as threat, not inconvenience. At the same time, the prefrontal cortex, which supports impulse control and perspective taking, is not operating at full strength. It is the part that asks, "What happens next?" or "Can I wait?" But mid-meltdown, that part cannot do its best work. The child may hear you, they just cannot use the information yet. That is why explanations often bounce off. Rules, lectures, and moral appeals all depend on the child being able to process them. In a threat state, the brain prioritizes relief, not reflection. So the more an adult talks, the more the child may hear pressure instead of guidance. The familiar adult script sounds reasonable. Calm down. It's not a big deal. Listen to me. Or, I already explained this. But those phrases can accidentally communicate that the feeling itself is unacceptable. The child does not become calmer from being rushed through the emotion. Often, they feel more alone inside it. From the child's side, corrective language can feel like dismissal. If the emotion is big and the adult responds as if it should be small, the child may interpret that gap as misunderstanding or rejection. They are not asking for a debate. They are asking, without words, to feel seen before they can settle. Picture the playground. It is time to leave, and the child is not ready. A parent says, "We talked about this," then adds a careful explanation about schedules and dinner. Every sentence may be true. Yet if the child is already overwhelmed, the extra reasoning can become more fuel. The issue is not the facts, it is the state. Screen time works the same way. Transitions are hard because the brain has to stop one rewarding thing and switch to another. When the parent leads with argument, the child often hears only loss. Then, the struggle becomes about winning the conversation instead of moving through the transition. Bigger crying does not always mean bigger misbehavior. Sometimes it simply means bigger dysregulation. The volume goes up when the system is overloaded, not when the child has become more calculating. So the surface intensity can be misleading if we are trying to understand what is actually happening. When this happens over and over, the child can start to feel alone with the emotion. They learn that the adult is present, but not emotionally available. Recovery becomes slower because settling down now also means recovering from the sense of not being understood. That cost is easy to miss. Science points to a different sequence: connect first, correct later. Emotional validation means acknowledging the feeling before trying to change the behavior. It is a small shift in language, but it changes the child's experience of the moment. Instead of meeting correction with more resistance, the child begins from a place of being understood. Validation does not mean agreement. It does not mean giving in, removing limits, or pretending the behavior is fine. It simply means naming the internal experience honestly. A parent can recognize disappointment without approving every action that follows. Empathy and boundaries can exist at the same time. That matters because feeling understood lowers threat. When the child no longer has to fight for recognition, the nervous system can begin to settle. Once the emotional peak softens, the brain becomes more available for guidance, problem solving, and learning. In other words, connection creates the conditions for teaching. The first step is pause. Not forever, just long enough to avoid an automatic correction. Lower the voice. Slow the body. Do not match the child's speed with your own. A regulated adult tone gives the moment a better chance of becoming manageable. The adult is borrowing steadiness until the child can borrow it too. Next, name the emotion. You look disappointed. You seem frustrated. That was really exciting, and now it's stopped. Labels help the child make sense of what is happening inside them. 3 simple moves matter here: pause, name the feeling, and offer connection. Words can organize emotion when the child cannot yet organize it alone. Then offer connection. I'm here. We will get through this. I understand this is hard. These are brief signals of safety, not surrender. They help the child borrow calm without turning the moment into a negotiation. Connection can be quiet and firm at the same time. Only after the peak has passed should the adult move into teaching, problem solving, or limits. That is when consequences make sense, because the child can finally hear them. Trying to teach too early is like trying to map a road while the storm is still overhead. The map matters, but timing matters first. If adults repeatedly argue during tantrums, a cycle can form. The child escalates, the adult pushes harder, and both sides become more reactive next time. Over time, the room itself can start to feel like a battlefield over small moments. The pattern becomes the problem, not just the original tantrum. Getting this right has a long-term payoff. Children who are met with steady connection often recover faster, cooperate more readily, and learn the shape of their own emotions over time. They do not become perfect. They become more guided because the adults around them are teaching regulation, not just compliance.
So the biggest mistake during tantrums is not being too strict or too soft. It is expecting logic to work before the brain is ready for it. The next time this happens, notice the moment, pause, and try connection first. If this video helped, subscribe to ParentLab for more science-backed parenting guidance and share the hardest tantrum situation you have faced.